Episode 94. The Vancouver Canucks suffered heartbreak in the 1994 Stanley Cup Finals, Game 7 against the New York Rangers. Ray Bourque and Dennis Potvin were both defensemen who managed to reach 94 points in a single season. And due to rising interest rates, 1994 was the year of the great bond market crash, when the bond market lost $1.5 trillion in value. Beyond MD, episode 94, here we go! Hey friends, welcome back to Beyond MD. If you are struggling to find your purpose, and if you have an idea and you are wondering how to bring it to fruition and have real impact on the world, then I think this could be the episode for you. Up until 3 months ago, I was struggling to find my purpose. This is something that many of us struggle with. I will talk about some of my challenges in a future episode, but I will be relying heavily on a framework that is shared by our guest today, and our guest is one of my friends, Farrah Khimji. Farrah is a business strategist, keynote speaker, and the founder of the Wellth Experience, a business coaching platform and community that helps high-achieving women build purpose-driven businesses rooted in their story, values, and voice. With a CPA, an MBA, and a specialization in strategy from Harvard, Farrah brings serious business credibility backed by years of experience in private equity and commercial real estate. But it's her personal story of reinvention that makes her work hit differently. After a year that included the end of her marriage, selling her house, and losing her job, Farrah made one life-changing decision. She would never again outsource her worth, identity, or power. Through her proprietary Fulfilled Founder framework, Farrah helps others move from unfulfillment to alignment, from performing for others to building with purpose. Her work blends deep personal clarity with bold business strategy, empowering others to lead with vision, own their voice, and grow without compromise. You can connect with Farrah on Instagram and LinkedIn at Farrah Khimji. Feel free to message her directly, as she loves to hear from listeners and fellow purpose-driven leaders. And with that, please enjoy my conversation with Farrah Khimji. Okay, Farrah, so this is a bit of a special interview today because I have known you for a little more than 10 years, and Seema has known you for longer. And I can say that over this time frame, we have been watching you grow. And I can say that now when I see you, Farrah, putting the work that you do into the world, I feel like you're living the life you want to live, and a life full of purpose. And so my goal today is to really unpack all of that, because I think there's a lot for everybody to learn. But I know that there's a process in getting to that stage. So Farrah, maybe what we can do is we can start off by talking about earlier in your life, when you were maybe starting work, maybe wrapping up school. What did success look like to you at that point? And then how did that dictate your actions and your work choices at that time?
Sure. Well, first, I just want to say thank you, Yethin, for having me on. I've also been watching you and Seema, and it's just been such a beautiful journey over 20 plus years that I've known Seema, and over almost 10, 15 years that I've known you as well, that we've grown up together, right?
Yeah.
Our adult lives have been together. So it's been so nice to be a part of that journey with you. And I've been excited to come on this podcast. I've been listening from afar, and
Thank you, Farrah.
You're doing such great things. And I think a lot of what you're doing is going to come through in what I want to share with people today as well. So my path was, kind of that traditional immigrant parent story. So my parents came to Canada in the 70s, around 1975, and they kind of came with not a lot, to be honest, and really built their careers and lives here. My dad actually was a civil engineer. He was educated in Nairobi and came here. And so the one thing that he was really big on, always for my sister and I, was education. And the form in which he knew that to be true, he was sort of feeling like education leads you to a good job, leads you to security, leads you to safety. That is the path. These are the options for you: doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant, scientist. That was it. And without actually saying it exactly like that, but that's what we were shown. And quite honestly, even just going off of the sort of science route was already a deviation to that path that my dad knew. Now, when I say it like that, it maybe sounds like, oh, wow, that was very strict, but that's actually probably how it was for a lot of us. I'm sure even on your side, where it's like, we knew that those traditional careers led to success, led to a good life, led to stability. And so I get why my dad was sort of pushing that path. But I already at a very young age saw something different for myself. And I was really
Hmm.
excited by the world of business. Now, I did not grow up in an entrepreneurial household. I did not really see business in the traditional sense like modeled to me. So the idea of going into a career for business even was a little bit, for my dad, was a little bit like, what's she going to do in business? Like what comes out the other end of that, right? And
Yeah.
so I remember too, it was a bit of a rebellion for me. Like I'm going to date myself, but I took OAC, which in Ontario is like grade 13. And I took all the OACs except for one or two that would be required to go to the science path. You needed 6 OACs. I took 13. I took 13 OACs, but I deliberately didn't take like physics or I think OAC biology or something that you would have needed. That was my rebellion back then. But I filled it with OAC accounting, OAC law, philosophy, all these other things. And so when I went into university, I went for commerce, for business. And that's where I kind of started my career. And, I find for myself, like, even within that, though, what sort of happened was like, went into business, but then I was still conditioned to say, out of this now, what comes out of this? And so I took the path of accounting. I became a CPA.
Hmm.
Because while I was in this business career, I was really into the marketing and entrepreneurship and all these kind of, at the time, what was considered more like fun and creative paths within the business world. It was still ingrained in me that you need to come out of this with a profession. And accountant felt like the most respectable option within the business world. And that's really how I made my decision to go the CPA route, right? Was like, at least if I come out of this, my dad will get, oh, CPAs. Okay. They make good money. That was it. That's how I made my decision for my early career choices.
There's a lot of similarity there, Farah. So I can tell you the words that were thrown around at our dinner table is that medicine is a very stable profession. It's a respected profession. It will give you predictability in life. So my dad was a family doctor. I decided to go down that path very, very early. And when it comes to education, very similar. I remember vividly there was a day when I was really afraid to tell my dad about the result of a grade 9 science test. I got 52% and I told him, I'm telling you, Farah, like he gave
Oh
me
boy.
that talking to, but it actually it really changed my outlook on school. And that's what got me to really focus. But unlike you, I didn't really have
Mhm.
that open mind to explore other things. So, but there was something there, I think, for you. So, talk to us about your early days there with work, working as a CPA. Tell us about that and what you learned from those times.
Yeah, and I will dive into that. But when you shared your result from your test, I felt it in my nervous system a little bit because it was the same for me.
Yeah.
Like mine was even, you get 99 on a math test, and it's like, where's the 1%? And so this perfectionism was really
Yeah.
ingrained in me. And so when I actually went into my corporate career, so I started at PwC, and that's where I, got my hours to get my credentials as a CPA. But then very quickly I was like, this isn't it. I sort of saw the life of a CPA, and no knock at it. I know bunch of wonderful accountants doing amazing work. And if you had stuck with it, you can be in incredible careers. But all I could see in those first few years was a lot of sitting behind spreadsheets and looking at numbers. And I just thought to myself, this this can't be it for me. And so I decided to do my MBA. And the strategy there was, okay, maybe now I won't just be sort of pigeonholed into traditional accounting roles and investor reporting roles and things like that. This will broaden me out to maybe doing more strategic things. And that's why I did my MBA. And sure enough, right as I finished up my MBA, my clientele while I was at the firm was predominantly commercial real estate clients. And then I went to Oxford Properties because of my commercial real estate experience within PwC. And then there was this recruiter that was out there that was looking for someone with a CPA, MBA with commercial real estate experience. And I had that. And so I went and worked at this kind of startup. It was actually a startup private equity firm. And then I was with them for 5 years. I was the VP of finance there, and there was no CFO. So I was sort of acting CFO of this private equity startup. And I keep throwing in the word startup is because I went from all of these very traditional kind of companies, PwC, Oxford Properties, to now this startup environment. And that this is where I learned a lot. But while I learned a lot, because I was kind of through osmosis learning about how to start a company, run a company, grow a company, scale a company, what happened was it was in a very male-dominated industry. So if anyone knows anything about commercial real estate and private equity, you would know that. And it was also a very, I'll just say it, a very white male-dominated industry. So for myself here, for the listeners, I am an Indian woman. And so that was always something I was kind of hitting up against while I was working at this firm. Was I was always feeling like this trying to belong. Like I wanted to belong to this boys club. And that's what I thought. I was like, how do I fit in more? I mean, I picked up golf for that reason. I sometimes learned a little bit more about what was going on with sports for that reason, just so I would have something to talk about, or that I would get invited out to drinks, or that I would be invited to the golf course. These were the things that I was doing to fit in. And I was shown that these are the things you do need to know to be able to have a successful career in this business. That's a lot of what my traditional career in corporate was about. And I didn't really see it at the time. I thought, okay, this is good. I'm climbing the corporate ladder. People are seeing me. But I was doing it by kind of quieting my voice, trying to fit in, not trying to stand out within that world for the things that I really valued and cared about, if you know what I mean.
Farah, from those early days, though, you've gone through quite a transformation. And so my question is, was there a moment in those earlier days when you realized that the path you were on was not the path that you wanted to stay on, and something had to change for you to be truly fulfilled? Can you take us through that time?
Yeah. So as I was sort of sharing that, I was always trying to fit in. I was always trying to belong to this world that I didn't really quite feel like I belonged to. But I didn't at the time think that it was because there was a better option for me out there. I thought I had to sort of fix myself to belong. Like this is this prestigious world of, high achieving people. Like, why can't I fit into this? And maybe I need to fix something about me to fit into this world, right? And have great success in this world. So that's kind of where my head was at. And then more and more years of trying to do that, I kind of felt like, okay, why is this such a struggle? Why am I banging my head against the wall? Now, simultaneously, while I was kind of working within the commercial real estate space, I was also a part of all of these associations that were relating to advancing women and women of color within the industry. Mm-hmm. And so when I was spending time doing that work, I was so lit up. Like I was so fulfilled. I could do that kind of stuff all day long. There was a component of programming, events, education, support for women in our industry to advance them. And so I was like, okay, maybe there's a job out there that would allow me to do that and do that more full time and actually get paid. So I wasn't getting paid for all the stuff that I was doing on all those associations and boards. In my mind, I was like, well, what if I could do more of that, but actually get paid? So I started searching. And while I was searching, I actually got approached by a national accounting firm. And I never thought I would go back to an accounting firm to go and lead their real estate practice. They were sort of more of, if there was like the big four accounting firms, they were like number 5.
Okay.
And so they wanted to really establish their real estate practice across Canada. And so I was like, okay, this role feels different enough from what I was doing, allows me to stay in real estate, let me go and try this out. And I went over to this company, and within a very short period of time, I was like, I don't think this is it either. I don't, and I kind of had this feeling. But what happened was that was also the same year when I started at that company. It was a month after I'd actually separated from my husband and we had sold our house. And so I was here now trying to make it work at this new company, also feeling like this isn't it, but kind of being like, well, maybe this is just because your life is not settled right now. Like maybe this will be it, but you're just going through personal turmoil. And so nothing feels right at this moment. And so I tried to really make it work within this company. And a year passes and I get called in one day, and it was that kind of meeting where you're like, oh, this is it. This is the meeting that people talk about where you're going to get let go. I went into that meeting surprisingly very calm, very, very calm. And when they delivered the news, they had never given me any sort of warning of like my performance was not there. So that was a little bit of a surprise that I'm like, how are we going from, this to that? But because they didn't really do that, they decided to give me a 6-month runway. I came out of that meeting and I was standing on the corner of King and University in Toronto. It was like 11 a.m. on June 4th, 2019. Like I remember this day so, so well. And I stood on that corner being like, wow, I just feel really free. And I think it was also the fact that from the moment even in high school, I had a job, and then I went to university and I had a job right out of university. This was the first moment that I had a chance to pause and even question the path that I was on in a tangible way. So when I stood there, I was like, okay, what do I do? I actually went and called my sister. She lived down the street. I walked over and we started chatting, and she was like, it's okay, Farah. She planted the seed of the idea of like, well, what if you started a business? She had actually started her own business a couple years prior. And I was like, okay. Now, that wasn't totally out of left field for her to ask me that, because I had always wanted to start a business. When I did my MBA, my favorite course was the entrepreneurship course. I had this like fun business idea that I came up with. It was related to the travel industry, but it was more so the process of ideating about a business, coming up with the strategy that I really loved. And so what happened after June 4th, 2019 is ideas just started pouring out of me. And I didn't know where these ideas were coming from. And they were all related to my kind of experience within commercial real estate, my finance experience, the passion for some of the diversity, equity, inclusion work that I was doing. Like it was all these worlds kind of melding together into these different business ideas. And what I landed on, my first business was helping to raise capital. So I had that private equity experience, right? So I was like, I could help raise capital for early stage tech startups in the commercial real estate space. So prop tech companies is what we like loosely called them. And I could work on ideating with them, strategy, pitch decks, getting them in front of investors, helping them form new revenue lines, like all sorts of things. And that's really what ended where I kind of started my first business. And what's interesting is you might think that that took months. That all happened by July 3rd. 29 days later, I had a website, I was incorporated, and more importantly, I had my first paying client, with 8 more to follow by September of that year.
So, Farah, it sounds like to me, up to this point, you had quite an interesting path, but it sounds like to me that because of this kind of variation in path, you over time were essentially doing a little bit of an audit of yourself. Like, what do I enjoy? You had a really good time when you were involved with these organizations with women. You knew that lit you up. And then you rewind back to your MBA and you took that course and you also realized that something oriented to business also lit you up, and putting all those pieces together, I get the sense that that probably helped you head down this new
Yeah.
path, which has been much more sustainable for you, right? So we often strive for this linear path, but the way I look at life is, okay, you've got this branch and you've got all these like outshoots going in different directions. Like it's okay to explore. And in a way, I feel like for the last 5 years, I've been exploring and I'm still trying to kind of find my way. But I think if one thing listeners can take away from this is it's okay to explore. And the middle of it all might seem really messy, but you eventually get a sense of what lights you up. And so far, take us through now to, okay, you had your first business, you had paying clients, and fast forward to today, maybe shed a little bit of light on what you do today, and then we can kind of talk more about, for people who are struggling to find their purpose and find alignment, what should they do?
Sure. One of the things that I did is I started putting myself in rooms with other entrepreneurs. So I
Mm-hmm.
was going to all of these startup events in Toronto. There was something about calibrating to the energy of people who were doing big things and sort of betting on themselves. And I feel like through osmosis, I was able to borrow some of that energy and say like, okay, they're just like me. They had this, they started somewhere, they had an idea, but the difference is they took actions and they bet on themselves
Mm-hmm.
to do that. And so that was a really big part of, my journey. And in that process then of saying, well, okay, they're doing this, and I carved out my business of how I might help them grow and expand what they're trying to do out in the world. And what I will say is there was the genesis of why that was the business was there was this stat that I heard around that time in 2018, 2019,
Mm-hmm.
that only 2% of all venture capital dollars were going to female-led businesses and only 0.35% to women of color. And that
Wow.
stat, and it hasn't changed.
Wow. Okay.
Interestingly, it hasn't changed much, and it's been, 7 years. But that stat lit me up, and I was like, okay, this is a problem. And what at the same time that was happening, women were starting businesses at faster rates than men. So it's not like women weren't in the startup space.
Mm-hmm.
They were. So I was like, this is a massive disconnect. I need to help solve this problem. But in the process of doing that, I was working very closely with founders. I wouldn't just go get them capital. I would actually work with them, ideating, working on pitch decks. And I learned through the process of doing a bunch of different things in this space that the part that I liked most was the early stage part of a business, and that I wanted to work directly with founders on strategy, on confidence. Often, a lot of times, people had the greatest ideas, but they didn't necessarily know how to position themselves or pitch themselves, or they had limiting beliefs around their self-worth. So then it's like, here they are trying to raise millions of dollars for their business, but they're not necessarily feeling worthy of that. And so I was just so fascinated in that area of helping people overcome those things. And so what kind of happened out of that, I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested more in coaching. So I decided to sign up for a coaching program.
Uh-huh.
It was through Mind Valley. And as I was going through that, and there was no big grand design that I was going to become a coach. I just was like really interested in the material. And within a week of being in it, someone who was a part of another coaching program that I was in, it was a mindset coaching program where I was a student in, or a coachee in. One of the other coachees, she asked me directly, will you coach me? I have this idea that I want to start. Will you coach me to do that as a business coach? She liked the fact that I had a business background, CPA, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I hadn't really thought of that. But this was before ChatGPT. I decided to put my time into developing a 5-page PDF that I sent her of what the coaching program would look like. And I was so nervous because I'd put a price on it and all this, and the price was a little bit higher than I thought I was worth at the time. But my own mindset coach was like, no, this is she kind of directed me towards this price. And when the person came back and decided to pay me in full and didn't question the price, I was like, oh, I'm going to get paid to do something that I probably would have done for free that I really love to do. This is now my business. So that was sort of the evolution of my business. And it didn't happen just like overnight, but I started transitioning more into saying, okay, I'll still work with some startups in this capacity, but I'm going to take on more coaching clients. And then eventually the coaching sort of eclipsed. So now really what I help to do, I help two types of people.
Yeah.
I help mid to senior level corporate professionals that are like, I know I'm meant for more. I have this idea on my heart that I would really like to get started. And maybe they've even started it. They have a bit of a side business and they've taken a client or two, but they'd love to scale it and make it their full-time job. If they could make enough money out of doing that business or launching that idea, they would leave corporate and do that all day long. And I love helping people do that. And then I also work with what I call sort of solopreneurs, people who are doing their business
Yeah.
entirely full time now. They have bet on themselves,
Mhm.
but they're at that point where they're like, okay, I'm making enough money to survive, but not enough to thrive, or I'm burning myself out doing it. How do I restructure my business, scale it without having to just scale by adding more time to it and burning myself out? So like then I go in and help them restructure. These might even be people who have like 5 employees kind of thing. Doesn't really matter the industry. I just help people where I'm like, if I understand your business, I might be a potential consumer of the business, or I can understand the business model, as well as I just like connect with you and the purpose of what you're trying to do here through this business. That's when I get really lit up to work with someone. Is like I always say my purpose in life is to help people bring their big ideas and dreams to life.
Yeah, I love that. And Farah, what I can say is from the many years that I have known you, when we have had one-on-one conversations, you're very zoned in those conversations. So I can see why coaching was a great fit for you. The other thing I love about that story, when somebody came to you and said, I have an idea and, I need your input here. It sounds like to me, you listened and you use that as a data point and it became a stepping stone for yourself and it gave you an idea on how to move forward. Now, before we get into purpose and alignment, I want to ask you one question.
Sure.
When this individual said that they would pay you in full upfront, and you said that this is work that you typically would have done for free,
Yeah.
and you were maybe even kind of questioning, like, okay, am I worth this price?
Yeah.
To me, it reminds me of the concept of imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I still suffer from that, and I'm working really hard to overcome that. But a lot of us go through this. Farah, do you have any advice
Oh
on
my gosh.
how can we take the necessary steps to overcome imposter syndrome?
Yes. This is a question I get asked a lot. And I've actually, when I had my podcast, done an episode on this, but it was years ago, and my thoughts on it have evolved a lot as well. But it's something I'm really like passionate about talking about. First, I want to remind the audience what the definition of the word imposter is. Okay. An imposter means you're a fake or a fraud. You're usually trying to swindle something out of someone, right? Like that's what the word imposter means. And then you're the doctor here in the room. You guys know what syndrome means, but it usually means that, I don't know, a set of symptoms that are happening, that something's sort of wrong with you maybe, right? And so when you couple the two together, I think it's a very, very damaging, debilitating term that we are all going around labeling ourselves with. Like something is wrong with us. Like we are fake people who have this problem. So I just want to say, like, I really think we need to stop using the term altogether. And this is why. When you are having those feelings of discomfort, like I'm not good enough, like maybe I don't think I'm worth this much, but it's towards something you actually want to do. You have a desire to do this thing. You're just a growth-oriented person. That is all that's happening. Growth is uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good all the time. But imagine we said to a baby, the first time it's going to take its steps, the first time it's ever done that they're an imposter.
Yeah, no, that's a great
Right? Like that's drastic. No,
Yeah.
they're just trying something new that they've never tried before, and they're going to fall down a couple times, but we want them to keep walking. We want them to keep taking those steps. It's the same when you are trying something new in your business, in your life, in any arena. It's like, it's going to feel a little bit messy and uncomfortable at first. So just like in the moment, say, is this a thing that I actually want to do? Because the only time I think you're truly an imposter in this context is when you are trying to fit into rooms and worlds that you don't actually want. That's when I talked about earlier in my commercial real estate days. Sometimes I felt those feelings of imposter syndrome a lot. And now looking back, I'm like, that's because I didn't really want that. That was not the world that I wanted to succeed and thrive in. So I was always feeling like an imposter. But when it is in the worlds that you're like, no, I truly want this thing that I'm going after, then like you're just a growth oriented person trying something new and it's a little uncomfortable. And that's all that's happening. And all you got to do is keep taking the steps towards the things that you want. And over time, you're going to feel more comfortable with it. Like anything, like riding a bicycle, like it's all those things that you just got to get in a few more reps. That's it.
I like that analogy of the baby and the concept of just putting in the reps. Farah, I want to move to somebody who is feeling really, really stuck and who is kind of questioning, well, what is my purpose? What can this individual do to find a bit more alignment? Maybe it's by asking the right questions, but I would really love your take on this.
Okay. I love this because when I started getting lit up by the fact that I felt like I'd kind of found a sense of purpose in my own life, that's really what I was searching for all these years. Like if we were really to narrow it down, that's what I was searching for when I was on that corner at King University and I sort of felt like I had a blank slate to restart my life. I was trying to say, I don't want to rebuild my life exactly in the same way that I had done it before. I want to do it with more intention. I want to be fulfilled by my life. So when I look back, it's like I was searching for purpose. When I got into the space of coaching and I'm like, okay, when I'm going to work with someone to start a business, I really want to help them also find that sense of purpose within the business. Because I think that when you're starting from a place of purpose, it's harder to give up on the thing when you know that you're doing this for a bigger reason other than just yourself. But how do you teach that? Purpose can often have a very like religious connotation. And I was like, okay, I'm a business coach. How am I going to teach other people to find purpose? It's kind of an esoteric term. And so I wanted to have a tangible framework. So I spent some time thinking about this and I was like, okay, well, what are the things that go into like, how do I feel when I'm in my purpose? The word that comes up and that a lot of people use is the word flow, right? So like, I'm in flow. It's that idea of like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, helping exactly who I'm supposed to be helping. And I feel like 5 hours could go by, but it feels like 5 minutes. And I'm just in this state of flow. We've all probably felt it at some point, right? For me, then I was like, okay, well, how do I teach flow? This is just a feeling. Like, how do I teach on a feeling? And the word flow is kind of airy fairy, right? Like it's still not tangible.
We hear it a lot. We hear it a lot. Yeah.
We hear it a lot. But this is what happened. I was on the treadmill, quite literally thinking about this a bit. And within 30 seconds, 4 words came out of me. And the 4 words were fulfillment, love, outstanding, world. And guess what? That's FLOW. And I wasn't trying to solve for that. Okay. That's just what happened. And I was like, oh man, I'm in flow right now. Like it was just like crazy. So this is what I ask. This is what I teach. So this is the framework, the flow framework, where people can start asking themselves these questions. Let's start with fulfillment. I want you to ask yourselves, what are the things that I am doing when I feel most fulfilled? What really fills my cup? What are the activities that I'm doing? Is it for me? It's like, it's coaching, right? Like I would sit and talk to someone for an hour for free. I've now just figured out how to make money at it so I can just do more of that. But what is that for you, right? What activity really just makes you feel fulfilled? Okay. Start asking yourself that question. The next is love. Now, this is less of the romantic kind of love and more of like, what are the topics that you are just mildly obsessed with, that you listen to every podcast on, you get books on this. This is what you want to talk about with your friends. When this is on the news, this is what you're listening and dialed into. Like, what are those themes of the things that you love that have consistently show up for you? Now, for me at the time, it was things around entrepreneurship, around funding, around women not getting enough capital. Like, I was obsessed. Anytime there was a topic on that on a podcast, I would listen in. If there were events, I would go to those events. Like that. That's kind of where that love piece comes in. Okay. The next is outstanding. So this is where I want you to think about, what are the things that people come to you for, that you're naturally sort of good at. If I don't know if you've talked about the concept of zone of genius at all on this podcast.
Not yet. I've come across it in a few books, most recently The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom, but
okay.
Feel free to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll give a high level. Like the actual concept comes from Gay Hendricks in the book, The Big Leap.
Yep.
And he talks about these 4 zones: zone of incompetence, zone of competence, zone of excellence, and zone of genius. Incompetence is things that like you're really not good at. You don't like it. You shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
for some people, that's their taxes. It's like outsource that stuff to someone who's competent, more than competent at it. Competent is like, I can do this thing, but it doesn't light me up. It doesn't give me any fulfillment. For me, like, that's cooking. I'll be honest. I don't like cooking. It doesn't fulfill me. I'm not saying we have to outsource everything in life. Like, I still know how to prepare a salad and whatever, but this is just where I'm headed with it. Then excellence, this is the thing that you're like, you're good at. You get paid for this. You are told you're good at this thing. And you're probably making your living doing a lot of this. This is where most people are playing, is in this zone of excellence, okay? Zone of genius, though, is that stuff that for some reason, like, only you can really do this thing in the way that you do it. There's something magical happens when you're operating in this space. You feel it and others feel it too. And the goal in life, based on the principles of this book and what I found to be true, is to spend more time in that zone of genius. It is better for you. It is better for everyone around you when you're playing and operating in that zone. So when we think about my framework in the context of that and the outstanding, it's like, what am I outstanding at? What do people come to me for? What do I love doing? And I don't mean outstanding in like, I've won every single award. This could also be just things you want to be outstanding at. Like for me, I was like, I wasn't an outstanding coach. I wanted to become an outstanding coach and speaker and all of these things, right? So that's the thing, is be careful of not just the things you're good at and that people come to you for, but that you sort of like maybe resent, right? Like people are coming to me for a lot of numbers and accounting, but I don't really want to do that. I'm excellent at it, but I don't want to do it. So, pick the ones that you're like, I'm outstanding and I actually enjoy. Okay. And then the last piece is world. This is where you ask yourself, what is the problem in the world right now that I feel really called to solve? This might be something that you've even just navigated yourself, right? That's often where most businesses are formed as well, is like someone saw a problem, they fixed it for themselves, and now they want to help other people fix it. For me, it was like, I knew what it was like to have a business idea in the early days of starting a business and sort of struggling with that and not knowing what steps to take in those early days, to now saying, I want to help other people do that, because if that's what's going to stop them from getting their big idea and dream in the world, like that's something I can help with. That's a problem I can solve in this world. Okay. So that's what I want you to think about. And it should also be something that if you were to look back at your life and say, I spent a lot of my life solving this problem, that you would feel good that that's where you spent your time and that those are the people that you helped and things like that. So that's the framework that I find has really helped me. It helps a lot of people kind of think of all those pieces, because we're all good at a lot of different things. But when you can kind of marry that fulfillment of the things you love, the activities that light you up around the topics that you really care about in an arena that you're good at and want to be great at, solving a real problem in the world that other people have, that intersection of that is purpose. And that is often where people's first business can often be born from that space as well.
Farah, I really enjoyed that framework. Like that was very logical, really resonated with me. Now,
Good.
you kind of, in that answer, you kind of did talk about, what you do for people who come to you
Yeah.
for an idea, but I want to make sure we capture everything here. So let's say somebody has that idea and they're like, maybe a business can be born out of this. Let's say they come to you. Feel free to share other things that you do to help these people because I
Yes.
do want to give you that chance.
Yeah, and I love that you said that. I think that the best businesses are born from your own story. If we actually look at a lot of businesses in the world and you go to the origin story of some of them, it's like quite literally the founder was trying to solve a problem that they had. Like
Hmm.
Spanx, this, all of that came from that. And so, I say to people, like, the starting point with me is like, what is that idea that you have on your heart? And maybe you don't want to monetize it yet. Okay. Like some people might say, well, Farah, I really want to do this. I don't even really care about making money at it. Right. A lot of people say that to me. And I get that some things are meant to be a hobby and
Hmm.
that's cool. But if it's something that you're like kind of altruistically saying, I don't need to make money at it, but it is something that you want to do a lot more of,
Hmm.
then I remind people that we all have 24 hours in a day
Hmm.
and we're all spending some of those hours trying to make money doing something. If the thing that you're spending your time making money at isn't the thing that you really want to do in life, there is a way to monetize the things that you actually care about and love doing. And not to say it's like, I need to profit off of this, but I see it as if you can make money doing the things that you love, A,
Hmm.
you get to just do more of it because you don't have to spend your time making money some other way. And B, the money you make from it can just drive more impact into that vision and mission of the thing you're trying to help other people with in this world. And so that is why I'm a big proponent of saying, let's turn those ideas into income. So that's really at a high level what I do. More tangibly, it's like I help people create their first offers,
Huh.
really
Okay.
say that now I have this idea. How
Yeah.
do I turn this into something that someone else can interact with?
Okay.
Someone else can buy, essentially, right? How do we actually get this off the ground and launch? So that's one big thing that I help most people do. Your business, you're not a real business until someone's paying you, right? Sometimes people want to start with their website and all these other pretty things, and we'll get to those things, but it's like, how do we get to saying we have a problem here that we can help people with, and we know there's a market for it because someone's willing to pay for it,
Yeah.
right? And that's really the
Yep.
starting point. Now, if you already have a business, but it's like, okay, it's not making me enough money. Sometimes people quit on their business. That's the number one reason people quit on their business, right? Is like it
Mhm.
doesn't end up making them enough money. That's also what I help with. So we strategize on like positioning of the business, of you. If it's especially if you are your business, sometimes you're not. I also, for example, I've worked with someone who has a Korean skincare business,
Oh, wow.
right? And so
Yeah.
I've helped her and she's accountant by day doing this in the evenings. And she's at the point where she's pretty close to being able to leave her day job, which is amazing. But we figured out how to help her get steady income through packaging her services through a membership. So these are the kinds of things that I work with people is like, how do we actually scale this business so that you can stay with it for the long term and grow and scale it, make really good money and help a lot of people in turn.
Farah, just for clarification, you have experience as a CPA in commercial real estate and with tech startups, but you just gave an example of a business that was far removed from those areas. So
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, do you help people in all sectors or do
Oh,
you
yeah.
focus on certain areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I think because of my CPA experience and if anyone knows anything about starting in an accounting firm,
Yeah.
you're kind of thrown into all of these businesses very quickly. I was 23 and I'm
Yeah.
sitting there learning about mutual funds and insurance and mining companies and like the whole gamut of things. So that skill set has been with me all of this time. So that's one thing I will always thank PwC for. And so that my ability to learn how a business makes money, it's like instant. And so I have worked with like the coolest, like I have some clients right now who are building AI solutions for small and medium sized businesses. I
Hmm.
have people who have, tech companies. I have people who have coaching groups for moms. Like it's quite health and fitness coaches to Korean skincare coach. So it's more like, do I believe in not just do I believe, do I support and connect with the mission of what you are trying to put out in the world. That is kind of like my deciding factor. And also I stay in integrity with, do I believe I can actually help this person? Do I know enough about their business to help them get off the ground? Or but I'm a quick study as well. But what I will say is, like, if someone came to me with a very technical, like, business in like Web3, I probably would say I'm not the right coach for you. So like, I don't work with everybody, but yeah, I can work with a lot of different types of businesses.
Farah, I have to ask you about monetization, because you gave a few examples around this. On one hand, some people who aren't maybe used to this scene, like, may think of monetization as a bit of a dirty word, but then when they are actually offering their services, some people often underestimate like how much they can actually bring in, because they're adding so much value. So I guess for somebody who has an idea and is maybe in the earlier days, can you give us some guidelines as to how we should think about monetization? Like, should we start off offering something for free just to gather data points? And then if we decide, like, yeah, we need to monetize because we're bringing real value to the world, how do we kind of figure out what rates we can offer or what rates we can charge? Maybe it's just a matter of comparing ourselves to a few others in this space, but can you walk us through this process a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, most people are going to start with what you just said, is like looking at what other people are charging out there in the market for what you do.
Yeah.
Okay. What I like to help my clients sit back and think about is, what is the transformation that your solution, service, or product really offers to your client or user or patient or whatever you want to call it, right? Call them customer. What is that transformation that this thing that you offer promises them or will get them? And when we think of it from that perspective, we then say, well, what is that worth to them? So in my context, for example, I am saying I will help you start a business and get your very first clients and package your offers and be able to go out there in the world and sell $5,000 and $10,000 offers. What is that going to mean for your life if you could bring in that kind of income over time? And then it's like, I usually say, whatever we can if we can quantify what that is worth to someone, then usually you want to price at a 10x. So like if that's worth $100,000 to someone, then my offer would be around 10,000.
I see.
So that you're always in a position of knowing what you offer delivers far more value than to that person's life. And so when we think about transformation-based pricing, it gets us out of the pricing based on trading time for money equation, which the world is moving away from in general. Think about how many companies really charge like that anymore. No, it's like, what is that thing at the end of it worth? And if you also think I also like to help people think along the spectrum of how much of it are they doing themselves or are you doing? So we've got the do it yourself, where you maybe, give them an ebook and they go and have to go do every single step on their own, right? You might charge $17 for that. Then you might have a course that gives them a few more steps where you're teaching it live. You might charge a little more for that. Then you might have a one-on-one coaching session where you're actually helping them implement and take actions and like giving them access to you. You might charge more for that. Or you might have a fully done for you service. Then you right? So you can charge more and more as you go up that scale. And if you think about it too, some of the factors that people will allow you to charge more or less is based on how quickly you can get them there. How much work they're going to have to do or not do, like, and the perceived likelihood of success with your product, right? So all of these things help you to figure that out. Now, when you're first starting out, you don't necessarily have the perceived likelihood of success yet, right? So this is where, when you said, should someone work for free? I'm not in, or like, do it for free a few times. I'm not in the belief that someone should do that. I think when we're giving our time to something, it should have some value. Now, what you price it at is maybe the question, because I think then there's skin in the game, and then you're working with someone who's also somewhat invested in you. Even sometimes if it's just like $100 or something, like there's some skin in the game in what you're doing. But what you can do when you're pricing, when you're just starting out, is say, okay, I'm going to do this with you. It's going to be a nominal fee, but what I want is your commitment to the process. And at the end, and I want to be able to document it. I want your feedback, your testimonial, a video testimonial. I want to use what I do with you as a case study. That all of that is going to be valuable to gather to then be able to charge for your next client. Okay. So that's what I would say when you're first starting out. But I don't ever say to someone, just do it for free, because both parties are just not being valued well in that equation.
Gotcha. That makes sense to me. Farah, I only have a few questions left. Yeah. So there's a lot of good ideas out there. And I know there will be people listening today, many of whom will be maybe sitting on an idea, feeling a little bit stuck, maybe being a bit afraid to take the plunge. What is one thing that you really want somebody like this to know?
A couple of things. I would just say start. There was a saying that I heard that was, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. And for years, that's actually the thing that moved me forward. I was like, I just got to start. I got to start somewhere. And then I also had someone in my world kind of say, well, what if you even took off the pressure to be great and you're just doing it? Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of eases it up. It's like, if you have an idea on your mind and it's just in your head, I like to remind myself there's a reason why that idea came to you. And if you don't take the actions to put it out there in the world in some shape or form where other people can interact with it, you're kind of doing a disservice to those people.
I love that.
Because you are you got that idea, and the way that you're going to bring it to life, even if someone else is already doing it, is going to be different. And there is going to be someone out there in the world who needs what you have to offer. And so I say start, and just start with one offer, one problem, one person. Often we think we have to build the whole business before we can even get started. It's like, no, one small little action. I remember I started with workshops, and there was one workshop where I had 5 people come to it. It was actually to teach on the flow framework back in 2021 when I was moving into my coaching business. And I was like, okay, I thought 100 people would sign up. 5 people came. Some of those people became my clients. And I started realizing, I'm like, if even just one person came, that would be great. That would be great if I could help one person with this. And that's what I want you to think about, is like, if I have something I know can help someone else, it is my duty, responsibility to do something to bring it to life.
Farah, I like the way you think about this, because to me, you're really placing an emphasis on service. And I love the way you think about this, because I feel like that can build a lot of intrinsic motivation, right? To make this more sustainable for the long term.
And I'll just say, like, when you don't make it about you,
exactly,
this comes back to the purpose piece. And why that last piece is the W, is what's the problem in the world that you want to solve? Well, often it's like, who's it for? What are you doing? How are you going to do it? Why are you doing it? The purpose piece is the why. And the why is usually never about you.
Yeah.
Right? And so when we remember, I always say to people, the hows will change over the years, but the why, if you can stay connected to a why that's bigger than you, that is the thing that'll keep you committed to this in the long run. Like for me, on the days that are hard, we all have them, and we don't want to get out of bed some days. I sit there and I lie there and I say, well, your purpose is to help people bring their big ideas and dreams to life. If you don't get out of bed today, that's one less person you've helped do that. And that's what keeps me going. And so that's why, the overarching theme here is like, find the thing that lights you up, that is in service of others. It will make it so much easier for you to stay committed to that path.
That's really powerful, Farah. Now, for people who want to follow you online, learn about your work, and even connect with you, where can they go?
Yeah, I would say come follow me on LinkedIn. That is where I'm the most active. I post almost every single day on there and drop nuggets of wisdom around what I've learned in my own entrepreneurial journey and what I'm helping my clients with. So that's probably the best place for you to connect with me. And whenever I'm kind of launching something new, I'll usually drop it on there as well. So that's where you can start. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Feel free to DM me on there too.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay. And Farah, any closing thoughts as we wrap up? Anything you wanted to cover and maybe we didn't cover? I want to give you that chance.
Yeah. What I would say is I think often when we are starting businesses or we have ideas or maybe we already have businesses is we are waiting for permission from someone else to give it to us. We're waiting for approval on our ideas, permission on our ideas, validation of our ideas. And what I would like to leave is just a closing thought is, that all comes from, this kind of not really believing in yourself, not trusting in yourself. And if you can start stepping more into believing in yourself, even without the evidence of having the thing that you already want showing up. So let's say it's I want to start this business, but I haven't made any money from it, right? If we keep operating in that way of waiting for the evidence of the thing that we want to show up before we start to believe in ourselves, it doesn't work like that. It actually works the other way. You've got to believe in yourself first before the evidence is ever there. And if you can hold true to believing in yourself and the vision that you have, the actions that you take from that place are very different than someone who doesn't believe in themselves. So I would say, know that these ideas and visions and dreams that you have for your life have come to you for a reason. Believe that they will happen. Trust yourself and take actions from that place, and know that the rest will figure itself out.
Farah, I feel like that's exactly what I needed to hear today. That really hits home for me. So thank you. And you deliver it in such a positive way. Farah, thanks for taking the time to join us today. We on our end, Seema and I, we're very proud of you. And we really are excited to see where you continue to take this. And I think you're going to continue to impact a lot of people. So keep it going. And thanks for making the time for us today.
Yes, thank you, Yethin. This was such a pleasure. I could have spoken to you all day long, but I'm so glad we got to do this today.
Likewise.
Thank you for having me here.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll stay in touch, Farah, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. Hang on hard to that quote. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. When I look back at my journey, my first few interviews on this podcast were quite frankly abysmal. But I picked away at it with time, got better, and now I'm at a point where I'm really enjoying myself and I feel like I am bringing something useful to the world. Guys, thank you again for joining, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time. Stay well, stay savvy.